This conference will now be recorded.
All right, go ahead, John.
All right. Thanks, Michael. So the topics for today's meeting are fairly straightforward. First of all, just wanted to reach out to the community and see if there was any feedback for the OCP Tech Week. And then the other one was to follow up on the presentation that we made the week prior to the OCP Tech Week, which was to the incubation committee. Just wanted to understand if what's next and what was the feedback. So, and then if there are any other topics, it seems like no one's added any. I think these two are probably going to be the topics that we'll spend most of our time on. So starting with the feedback for the OCP Tech Week, I know Mike's here, so just general, the layout of the topics presentations and the open discussions, and any concerns with using the online portal either as a presenter or an attendee. I think from my side it was pretty great because I was both a presenter and an attendee. Though towards the end I just started using the Zoom meeting ID, and that actually streamlined things really well. I just had to stay on that one and it was pretty good. Anybody else want to share any?
Yeah, the Cold Take meeting yesterday, Archana shared the statistics for the attendees. So there were, I think, 92 people that were listening to the presentation that I did.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in getting the stats, we can share numbers for each of the tracks. But we can't share, company information or, attendee names, but we can give you an idea of how many, people were, from a quantity perspective, were available in each track. And it kind of varied between a low of about mid 40s to like a high of about 120, 130 people, depending on, the track and the content. And that stat kind of echoed across all of our tracks, across, all 4 days. I can tell you the morning tracks were probably more heavily attended than the evening ones. I think as people's day caught up with them, they,
Naturally, yeah. Well,
decided that other things.
Yeah, but I think John Liang's presentation and also Mike's presentation. I think John Liang's had about 100 and something, right? And Mike's was like 90 plus. So it's pretty good attendance for the redfish.
Yeah, the redfish for newbies was really good. And I think that the intro, the welcome, was very well attended, where everybody kind of gave a readout of, what each project was doing, each work stream was doing. So, and I think Mike's was also very well attended. So yeah, if anyone's interested, you can either shoot me an email or shoot Michael an email here, and we can share those numbers with you. The price for registration now for online only has dropped. So it's now $49, and it will stay $49 until at least the spring time frame, 2021. And then, so all that content is available. You can also see all of the chats, because the chats were also recorded, and you can see everything that was done on the Etherpad.
Sorry, Archana,
and if you wanted
to, content is available till March?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah, John, so it's all just on demand now. So what you can do is, if you registered for the live event, you can log in using the same login credentials. Don't need to purchase anything else. And you can watch every single recording. And I think the vast majority of sessions will also have the slides available for download as well. So you can go in there and grab all that content.
Awesome. All right. Anything else on feedback for OCP Tech Week? I think from our usual attendees, we just have Mike, and I think he's already given his opinion. So, do we want to move on to the next topic?
One last,
absolutely.
yeah, I was just going to say one last topic, and it was announced during Tech Week, was that we are not going to have a spring summit. It will be a fall summit. So the global summit that used to occur in the March timeframe has now been pushed back to the October-November timeframe. It's still unclear whether it's going to be an in-person or a hybrid model or purely virtual. I think that will depend on corporate travel policies. By the end of the summer, we should know better. But there will be no global summit in March. It'll
Right.
be
So
in
the global summit is in the fall. Okay.
Correct.
So it's going to be in person or hybrid.
Yep.
And
we don't know yet.
And because it's the global summit, most probably it's going to be in the Bay Area, or it's too soon to tell. Let's just say that.
The global summit will always be in the Bay Area. So if we do have it in person, it will still be at the San Jose Convention Center.
Okay.
And the Prague summit has been canceled. Usually we do a regional summit in Europe in the fall, and that has been canceled. We're not moving it to spring at all, just because we don't think there's going to be enough travel requirements between now and then to make that happen.
Yeah.
We might do some regional webinars, and you might have seen that on the OCP events page, where there is, we just did one in Japan. We were going to do one in Korea. OCP China Day also occurred during the same week as Tech Week. There might be others in Taiwan, Africa, things like that. So we might do some regional events in the spring timeframe. And we might also do some very specific events. As I was telling the other organizations and other groups, if you have a need for, a workshop between now and the fall, obviously we don't want a whole year to go by without giving you an opportunity to get together, whether it's virtually or, even in person. So if there is a need, we're happy to host a half-day ACS workshop or a full-day ACS workshop whenever you need it, if there's, material to cover. And we could do it as a large Zoom call, or we could do it as a GoToMeeting. We can keep it fairly informal and make it only ACS specific. So just wanted to throw that out there, that if there is a need, we can absolutely entertain it.
Okay. So in interim period as required. Gotcha.
Yep. So just keep us posted and let us know if there is a need, and if there is, happy to put something together between Michael, Kaylee, Kate, and I. We'll figure something out.
Sounds good. All right. Can we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. So John, I think the next item, there is the feedback from the IC presentation. So
Right.
we have run into a bit of an issue in regards to a supplier for a product based on this spec. It's something that IC is looking for. I think the expectation was, that Invent might be the supplier. And then, when we found out that wasn't the case, that's the hurdle that we're seeing right now to this being approved, just not having a supplier.
So I guess.
So what do you need built?
So one of the things the IC is looking for when they're approving a specification is that there will be a product associated with the spec. If there's not a product, there's not too much value that the incubation committee sees in in approving a contribution.
So
and I think
I just this is my first door exchange meeting, so I'm not sure what the incubation committee was looking at in terms of product.
Yeah. So about a month ago, we presented a specification for door heat exchanger for OpenRack,
Yeah.
basically generations 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And the document is fairly detailed, hence the term specification.
Okay.
And I think Michael's point is with the incubation committee, usually when they approve specifications, there's a product or from a specific supplier to go with that. I guess is to kind of validate the specification, right? And also to basically, I guess, involve some collateral, right, to get you approved. Michael,
Yeah.
is that okay? So I guess to this point, Michael, then because I'm just trying to understand this, if we with this document, I think your point is that it would be a struggle for the IC to kind of approve this, right?
And to approve it as a specification, yes. I'm glad we've got Archana on the call. Archana, is this a scenario where we could maybe look at this as a requirements document?
Okay.
So here's a couple of things. First of all, the reason that the requirement, there is a requirement on specification. So if you submit it as a specification, the requirement is that there should be a supplier within 120 days of the spec being approved. So, because the spec is kind of useless to our community unless there's somebody that's building a product on it, right? And that product is consumable by the public. So if you do not have a supplier today for that spec, the IC is going to expect something within the next 120 days. And if there is a supplier lined up that is going to make this available to the public in the next 120 days, that's great. If, however, you don't, then the IC will, reject the spec. Basically, they will approve it on a contingency. And if that contingency isn't met in 120 days, the spec will be removed from the OCP contribution database.
I see.
So the
All right,
question
so-
I have for the community here is, if it's truly a specification, then there should be a product available to the public.
So where can I find that spec, for lack of a better term, so that we can take a look at it and decide if we're interested in building it?
So if you go to the wiki, the wiki for the ACS door heat exchanger, I believe before the incubation committee as well as the tech summit, Michael Schill posted the latest versions of the documents that we sent as collateral for the incubation committee meeting. So you can definitely have a look at that. Michael, that's correct, right?
Well, last time I looked at the wiki and for specs, like, it was pretty slim. So I thought that we were looking at something very detailed here.
I believe it's on there under work in progress documents.
Okay.
Let me drop the link there. It's under documents.
Yeah. So.
And there, so the link's in the chat there.
Yep.
Working OCP specification. All right, I must be on the wrong page.
So Felipe, you're looking for the ACS door heat exchanger specification for OpenRack revision X.Y.
Okay.
Oh, this is the online version. Yeah. No, this is not the one. Yeah, you wanna do the X.Y, which is actually the same as the version 0.9 that we sent for the incubation committee meeting.
Okay, can I ask for a super big favor and drop that in the chat so I can pick it up, please?
Oh,
just a link. Oh, there's a wiki. Okay, all right, that's the right wiki. I'm on a different wiki.
There are several wikis for the ACS group. There's one for the door heat exchange. There's one for cold plate. There's one for the immersion group. So
right.
this is on the cold plate one up.
I got it. I'm on it. I found it.
All right. So that's a requirement number A, meaning that there has to be a supplier within 120 days, and the IC will approve it based on that contingency. And like I said, if they don't have a supplier within 120 days, we will remove it, because that spec is, again, like I said, not really of use to the community as is. Now, if there will be no supplier, then the team has to decide how they want to put these requirements out there. Is this truly a spec on which a product could be built, or are these just guidelines, or they're, you know, some sort of requirements documents, in which case they will not be presented to the IC as a specification, but they will be presented to the IC more or less as a reference document, or as a you know, requirements document, or, you know, a white paper under a copyright agreement. So I think the door heat exchange group needs to figure out how they want to address this.
Right. So Archana, over there, it's you know, this document could potentially serve as a requirements document, because there are lots of details in there that could serve that purpose. There are obviously references to you know, OpenRack v2 and v3, but also guidelines along the lines of, you know, how many inlets and outlets, what type of interfaces are we talking about, you know, how do you measure performance, what sort of efficiency targets should the, you know, should an active door heat exchanger use, how do we do monitoring and reporting with Redfish, and you know, and then finally with regards to reliability and quality, talking about different ways of testing or checking the final assembly. So I mean,
yeah,
it
John,
it could potentially serve as a requirements document.
correct.
Yeah.
In which case, that information that is in that document would not need to be, if you will, contributed under a contribution license agreement. It would then just be a reference document under a copyright license, right? So the companies would not be really sharing, you know, they could still assert their patents on anyone using this as a potential spec, right? And so that slight difference, but you know, let me know how the community wants to handle it. If you have a supplier, that's great. If you don't, then, you know, we're going to have to word it slightly differently. And those that may have signed a contribution license agreement for this spec, we will have to notify them that, you know, we're shredding their contribution license, and that, you know, we would need them to allow us to print it and copy under a copyright license. Does that make sense?
And when you said contributed under a copyright license or agreement, you said that.
So the difference between a contribution license and a copyright license is a contribution license is a patent non-assert. So whoever contributed IP on that specification will not assert any patents, and there's some grants associated with the patents that spec covers, right? So anyone that builds, suppose supplier XYZ goes off and looks at the spec and says, hey, this is a great spec and I want to build to it, they don't have to pay royalties, they don't have to pay patent fees, right, to the contributors of that spec. So that's why we have them sign a contribution license agreement, because it's a royalty-free patent license and a copyright grant. Now, if this is just a reference document, it's kind of like a white paper. You could either do it under a Creative Commons license, or you could do it under a copyright license. And all that means is that if someone does use this IP in here, there might be patents asserted by those that are contributing that IP to the user of the spec. Or sorry, not the spec, but the reference document, because it's not a spec, right? It's just guidelines, it's just reference, it's information sharing, but that the IP is still patentable and it's not being granted under a non-assert. So they may have to go back and, you know, if Facebook was an author, then they would have to go back to Facebook and say, hey, look, if there's IP in there, Facebook could potentially come back and say, hey, that's our IP and you used it, and, you know, you need to pay royalties.
So John and Michael, I'll set up a call internally to see if we're interested, and I think we are. So then after that, I'll set up a call with both of you and see how we get moving on turning this thing to a product. But I don't see any IP in the spec, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that as well. I don't know, Mike. What are your thoughts?
I don't think there's any IP in it either.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no IP in it, then it technically cannot be a specification, right? So if that's the case, then it's just a reference document. So you
Or
wouldn't need a
requirements,
supplier, yeah, or a requirements document, right? So
Yeah.
at that point in time, you'd be presenting it to an IC, to the IC, not as a spec, but as a requirements document or a reference document, in which case all I need is those that authored it. I just need a copyright license, and that allows us to publish it, and it could get translated and it can get distributed. You know what I'm saying? A typical copyright license for the material.
And Archie,
So-
correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not even sure we would need them to represent. We would just need to notify the IC that, it's now
Correct.
changed, and what
Yep.
you saw is going to be a requirement stock. So we can move forward with voting fairly quickly.
Correct. Exactly. So it just depends on what you're calling it. Specification implies IP. That's all.
Okay.
So let us know how you want to proceed. And if it's purely a requirements document, then we may want to just change the title and change the licensing portion to say, hey, this is being, contributed under a copyright license, and we move forward. Super simple. At that point in time, you don't need a supplier in place, and you don't need any of that because it's just a reference document. Of course, if you still have a supplier, that would be great. And we'll happily accept that, but it's not a requirement for a reference document.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess this, yeah, we can probably take this offline.
Fair enough.
And have that conversation and get back to the OCP incubation committee, or at the very
Perfect.
least to you, Archana, or and Michael.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just let us know how you want to proceed. Happy to help.
I mean, having said that, someone could take the requirements document and still make a product on it and put their own bells and whistles. There's
Absolutely.
Exactly.
They could. And then if they wanted to contribute that spec that product is based on to OCP, then yeah, absolutely. We would love it. And then we could also, they could also apply for OCP accepted or OCP inspired recognition, depending on, exactly what they're contributing. If they're contributing the spec only, or if they're contributing, the spec and the design package, however they want to do it, and the level of membership that they have. So we can work all of that offline.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sorry, this is super cool, but I need to drop now. I'll join at the next meeting. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Feel free
Thanks,
to,
Philip.
you can listen to the recordings on the wiki as well, so
Okay.
you won't miss anything.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess in terms of next steps, I guess Mike, with you and Stefan, Jacob and I, and then maybe we can include Matt as well. I'll set up a quick call in terms of to discuss the next steps, maybe next week, so we can have this figured out, so we don't keep the OCP incubation committee waiting in the meantime. Does that sound good? Is next week a good time for you? Reasonable?
Yeah, okay. You could always just send an email to this group and say this is what we want to do, and that there's really nothing for us to do other than some minor editing on the document, and that the IP agreement that we had signed gets nullified more or less. And do we actually need to do a copyright document as a separate thing?
Yeah, as far as I
Yeah.
understand,
Okay.
it's probably similar to what we did for the white paper on the blind mate interfaces side. Is someone sends an email and then you respond saying I approve or something like that.
There is a copyright license agreement, so we can send it out. Michael can easily send it out to all the authors, and it's fairly easy. It's like a 2-page, standard copyright agreement.
Awesome. Michael, if you don't mind sending that out to us, that'd be great.
Yeah. So John, that would be you and Mike and Stefan, or anyone else?
Yeah. So Mike, Stefan, Jacob, and myself.
And do.
So copyright license document. Gotcha. Yeah, I like how it keeps correcting my horrible grammar.
So you could just send an email to all the authors with a copy of the copyright license document saying that since we're not submitting a product, that we're going to convert it from a specification to a requirements document, and the IP document that we signed is going to go away, and you need to sign this copyright agreement, and we're done.
Yeah, I'll still set up a call just so that we can just have a quick discussion. It doesn't necessarily need to be super long,
Okay.
just to, be on the same page. So yeah. All right. Do we have any other topics to go over? Archana, I do have a question if there are no other topics. For the ACS leads meetings, are we done for this year and then maybe reconvening in January? I was just curious.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Yeah, just checking because that way you can.
We do have one scheduled for the 15th. Do you guys want me to cancel that?
No. I'm asking. I mean, I'm available on the 15th. It's just the 18th onwards. I'm trying.
Yeah, I think it just depends on each group and the level of attendance and the level of conversation that needs to happen. If you don't have any topics on the agenda, then cancel as needed.
So Archana, I think John's referring to the Rack and Power and ACS leads sync call that we have just with the leadership.
Got it. I might end up canceling it because I just don't have any topics right now. I don't know if Caleb or Steve Mills or others have anything. So if they don't, then I'll probably end up canceling it.
Yeah, the other thing is, okay, sounds good. Yeah, so then that'll reflect in my calendar, so I won't have to worry. Thanks, Archana. Actually, Michael, so the next door heat exchanger, since this is a bi-weekly meeting, the next door heat exchanger meeting falls on Christmas Eve. I'm going to say we're good to cancel that one, unless we have.
Are you sure? Okay, if you're sure, happy to have it.
I mean, I won't be there, and I'm going to assume a lot of people probably are not going to be in the mood to attend.
I will go ahead and cancel it, John. That's a great point.
I think Michael was being rather sarcastic.
Oh, yeah.
He really wanted to hear your voice, and
just being facetious, John. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. I also prefer meetings not being super serious all the time, so that's good. Okay, if we have nothing else, I think we've covered all the items. So I think the only AIs we're taking from this, first of all, I'll obviously send out the meeting notes to the community so they especially know about what's happening in 2021 with regards to summits. So I'll definitely send that one out. And then, Michael, you're going to send us the copyright license document. I'll set up a meeting. And then the authors, just need to meet very quickly and determine what's the next step for the document that we presented to the IC meeting in November. And I think we should be covered. And of course, cancel the meeting on December 24th.
Yep, will do. Thanks, John.
All right, excellent. If there's nothing else, thank you all. I did see some new attendees, so feel free to reach out to either Jacob or myself if you have any questions. I'd be happy to provide information, answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, thanks for attending.
Thanks, John. Talk to you soon.
And
if we don't see you, don't talk to you, have a great Christmas and New Year's break.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yep. Happy holidays. Take care.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy Christmas. Bye bye.
All right, see you.